vlog again. Just can't wait to do a vlog again. The life I love is making vlogs for my friends, and I can't wait to do a vlog again. Doing a vlog again. Going places that I've never been. Seeing things that I may never see again. And I can't wait to do a vlog again. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Top Vloggers. We are here in beautiful Los Angeles, California on this sunny morning. Just waiting on Aunt Melinda to get here so we can leave. We are headed to the LBC, Long Beach, California. We are going to the Queen Mary today. It ought to be a very exciting trip. There are a lot of hauntings and ghost tales that go on. We're going to hear a few of those. We'll see you there. Come on!
Mary. Oh, let's park right up to you.
Jean Harlow. What a beauty. John Barrymore. And Jean Crawford. Clark Gable. One of the greatest of all time. What a cool mural. All the people dancing around. We're inside like a bar / cocktail lounge. There's the light fixture. Definitely a pretty nice little place. I'll have to give them that. And the food's pretty good as well. I sure enjoy the food. So just thought we'd give you a big little around. Well, this is the outside of the Queen Mary, and she is one big, beautiful ship. That is for sure. I had to run back outside, grab an extra battery. We're headed back in. Just wanted to show you this ship for the, well, until we go back on the inside.
And here's your sticker.
Full swing. Literally had all our workers camping on the docks waiting for the money to come in. So we went to the British government, asked for a loan. They gave us $80 million to finish the ship. A lot of money back then, a lot of money now. And we were able to launch the ship in 1934, start sailing in 36. We start in Southampton, England, take us to Cherbourg, France, go across the Atlantic to New York City. Takes about 4.5 days to make the trip. And the ship goes about 34 miles an hour, which is extremely fast for something this big. Even by today's standards, that's pretty quick. Now, the first 3 years of the ship's operating, everything's going pretty smoothly. But the question comes up, must have been something that happened during those years that would contribute to paranormal. And the answer is no. It was really calm. So calm, there were very few deaths on board the ship. There were a few, but nothing that happened often, and nothing, natural causes for the most part. Now, 1939 rolls around. It's a ghost. No. It's a funny sounding ghost. No, it's okay. So 1939, World War II is declared. We stop everything, bring both the Queen Mary and her sister ship, the Queen Elizabeth, back to New York. They're painted gray and drafted as troop transports, and then they start taking trips around the world, picking up troops, bringing them to Europe for the Allied war effort. Question comes up again, of course. Must have been something that happened during those years that would contribute to paranormal. The answer is yes, there were deaths on board the ship, mostly linked to soldiers if they were fighting, injuries. Some of these men did not leave the ship due to those injuries. Unfortunately, that was a common thing. The other incident was friendly fire. Happened off the coast of Ireland right around 1942. They have smaller escort ships. They would meet the larger ships and help bring them into port. One of these escort ships was called the Curacao. About a third the size of us. It was another troop transport loaded up with troops. We were as well. Bad visibility, miscommunication in the travel pattern. We were doing a zigzag pattern all the way across the Atlantic. That was how we avoided enemy torpedoes. The problem is when we got to this spot, it It also meant that we would run into that other ship and cut it in half. Within 5 minutes, they were on fire. Another 5, the ship had sunk. Almost 350 men died in that accident. It's considered to be one of the main reasons people believe the ship is haunted today. Also, we were under strict orders to keep moving. We couldn't stop the ship. We're a huge target for the enemy. We had to keep moving. Did have a few Irish fishing vessels off the coast. They would come out and rescue who they could. Managed to rescue the captain. Almost threw him back. The captain usually went down the ship. That's how it worked. But they took exception. They rescued him, and he would survive to take half the blame for that accident. So after this, right around 47, the war is calming down. We go back into luxury liner service for 20 years until 67. And around then, we notice a drastic drop in revenue. Anybody know why? Partly, there was alternatives. Yes, airplane, faster, they were cheaper, and they were the new thing. Everybody wanted to ride on the plane, not like today. And this thing got 13 feet to the gallon. It was hardly fuel efficient. Went up for auction. Long Beach put up the highest bid, just over a mere $3.5 million. And I say mere because you remember how much money we got for it in the 20s? $80 million. The fact that we got it that cheap is a pretty darn good deal. Opened our doors in 71 as a hotel. Been here ever since. Longer here than we were at sea. Now the big question people usually have when they come on this tour is, when did these reports and these hauntings start becoming a common thing on the ship? And the answer is, as soon as we became a hotel. As soon as we opened our doors to the public, people started seeing things, hearing things they didn't really understand. Depends on when you come in. Busy days, a lot going on. You got festivals, Art Deco festival. People come through dressed like they're from the era, so it makes it even more difficult to differentiate between natural and supernatural. And you have days where it's the other way around. It's quiet, not a whole lot going on. People do tend to see a bit more on days like that. Simply less distractions. Last question, why is the place haunted? Obvious reason, someone died at the location, of course. Next would be someone enjoyed a place so much while they were alive, they decided to come back. This is a party on the ocean. People had some of the best days of their lives on this ship. This time it's free. You can come anytime, they don't gotta pay. So, I'm going to take you all around the ship a bit. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to take pictures, you can. If you want to take video, you can do that too.
Thanks. My girl.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm used to it. So this is one of the third-class lounges. There's a few others below us: Carpathia Lounge, Coronia Lounge, just down below. A lot of events happen in these rooms. We were still able to rent them out. A lot of people have graduations and parties and corporate events, whatever you want, people can rent it for. There was an event happening in the mid-2000s. There were a group of 3 ladies from the cleaning department. They were coming to this spot to get the area ready for this event. Had about an hour to get prepared. So they start cleaning up the area, but when they first come in, they notice that there is a woman, looks to be in her 40s, elegant white dress from the 1940s, wearing a white hat, just sitting in the chair and staring at the floor. All the women thought about it, so, well, she's not doing anything wrong, so we'll just clean around her. Not sure how that worked. So they start cleaning the room up, getting everything prepared. About 5 minutes until they're supposed to start this event. The lady is still in the same spot, hasn't moved. So finally, one of them walks up and says, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't be here anymore. We're having an event. It's starting in just a bit, and you've been here the whole time." So finally, the woman reacts, looks up at her, kind of a melancholy, just a sad look. Stands up, looks around the room once, and walks through the wall. out into the bay. Now, all 3 women made the report at the same time. And all 3 women still work here. I don't think I would have stuck around. I might have left. About 3 years ago, we had a tour, one of the shipwalk tours, actually, the longer tour. And we were in this area, we're actually down below, and there was an older gentleman on the tour, and as soon as I got done talking about that report, he's like, no, listen here, listen, don't you understand? The guy starts yelling at me. This is this guy's problem. I said, well, the name of that room is the Carpathia, right? I said, yeah. And he said, well, that was the name of the ship that rescued the survivors of the Titanic. So he thinks that in some way, maybe that spirit is somehow related to the Titanic. But the odds of a ghost coming back to a room just because it's named after a ship they were on, kind of a stretch. We got him to calm down. Stop yelling at me. Any questions? All right.
Oh, have you seen a ghost yourself?
No.
Shucks.
I guess I shouldn't say I don't believe, because anything's possible.
You
Who
bet.
knows? Maybe today's the day.
Well,
It's hard for me to believe because I've never seen anything, but I'm not saying that. I mean, there's so many other reports of people seeing things on this tour too. Here, there have been quite a few reports made over the years. There was one made in the early 90s, back when there was smoking and non-smoking sections on board the ship. Happened to be in a non-smoking section. As a member of the cleaning staff, she was walking through and she thought she could smell cigar smoke coming from one of the suites. So she went inside the room and saw a large man in a nice suit just sitting there puffing away on this cigar. She said, sir, I'm sorry you can't be here. This is non-smoking area and I gotta clean the room for paying guests. You gotta go. And he didn't say anything. He just stood up, kind of looked at her indignantly, kind of annoyed, and walked through that wall. And on that wall was a painting of Winston Churchill. And he did stay on board the ship often, especially during the war. Had his generals bring in bags of dirt, and they fill up the bathtub with the dirt, and he planned the invasion of Normandy in his bathtub. Kind of like a game of Risk, with a little more at stake. Same idea. Same as a board game, basically. A little more at stake. I did, about 5 months ago, we had an event on board the ship for Darkest Hour, the Gary Oldman film, where he plays Winston Churchill, and I missed it. I'm still mad about that. Gary Oldman hanging out with everybody. Almost met Sirius Black.
Could have been a good time.
Granted, George R.R. Martin here.
Right.
I didn't die. So, if you're checking out your room, you do it right here. This area was used for different purposes while it was sailing. It was where you pick up your check if you worked on board. It's also where you switch out currency when traveling from country to country. Do that all here. Now, this piano is original to the ship, not original to this spot. It's been moved 4 or 5 times. Everywhere it's been, there have been sightings of a woman in white with long black hair. This is a different woman. She had a ball gown on, and she was about 20 years younger. Standing in this room, in the corners, dancing by herself in the center of the room. Not sure really what her story is, but some people think that maybe she fancied somebody who played the piano, because she seems to follow it wherever it goes. For a time, piano was in the first class lounge, just a little bit of that direction. And people have made reports, similar sightings of a woman in white around the piano. Adds a little more weight to that theory. Now, the time when people tend to see the spirit is mostly between 2 and 4 in the morning. So, not all the time, but that's the main time. You have guests walking through, maybe look over, catch a glimpse of this woman in white. We also have quite a few people who work at the front desk all times of the evening, keeping an eye on the area. There have been a few reports from them of the piano playing on its own. It sound like a hand running along the keys. Even poltergeist activity where the bench has moved on its own. Rare, but there's been a few reports from the front of that happening. And there is also a photograph online. It's taken from this angle right here. And there is a guest. She's sitting at the bench, and you can see her reflection in the plastic covering. Next to her is a second reflection of a woman in white with long black hair, but there's nobody sitting next to her. Now, if you look up Queen Mary Ghost on Google, it is one of the first images that comes up, so go ahead, and you don't have to do it.
Google.
When you get the time, take a look. Have to warn you, it's not the first image. If you look, you got to dig for it. It's a little further down. The one that comes up first is very badly photoshopped. Looks like Slimer in the reflections. Came out in the 80s. Another interesting thing, this doesn't have anything to do with ghosts or the ship, but I think it's intriguing. If you look out these windows here, you'll see Miami.
Close to it.
Because if you watch Dexter or CSI Miami or any TV show that takes place in Miami, you're actually looking at Long Beach. Only city you can shoot from two angles and not see the mountain range.
It was beautiful.
Shoot from the side.
Doors.
As we all know, the tallest mountain in Florida, right? Space Mountain.
That would be correct in Florida.
Let's head back to the hill. Yeah. People say, oh, there's a trash mountain. I'm like, oh, we don't have to talk about the trash mountain. Made it so far. What's your name? So, if you're walking around the ship on your own, you get kind of your own ghost tour. There are plaques everywhere that have different reports, different sightings have been made through the years. One right at the end of the hall we just went down. We're not going to talk about it in there though, because there's people staying in that room. I don't think they'd appreciate it, but we're talking about ghosts outside, so we'll do it a little further away. So the report happened in '93. It was a man on business. He came in very late at night, just wanted to get in, get out, quick trip. Had 2 bags with him, toiletry bag and a suitcase. Keep that in mind, it comes into play later. So we went into the room, and the first report he made was a temperature drop of about 15 degrees. It's a little weird. He didn't think a lot about it though, because he was so tired. He just wanted to rest. So he goes to bed, about 5 minutes pass, and he doesn't know how he missed it, but there is another man in the room with him. He looks over around the corner and sees one of the chairs. There's a man in a coat with a sailor's hat, reading the newspaper. Just ignoring him. Reading. Apparently the man was so scared by this, he didn't leave. He just pulled the covers over his head and tried to go to sleep. Make sure you cover your feet. He did eventually go to sleep. I don't know how that happened. I don't think I would have been sleeping. But he woke up, he looked around, and couldn't find anybody of that description. Had one of the guys from the front desk come up, look around. Nothing. Couldn't find anybody like that. They did, however, find his toiletry bag. It was empty at the foot of his bed, and the contents were found in the bathtub. And every bottle of shampoo, mouthwash, toothpaste, cologne was empty. So maybe the ghost had something against cleanliness. Or he used all the product. Wanted to wash up. Nobody likes a dirty ghost. Last report that was made was him leaving in his pajamas that morning. No continental breakfast. New York City. Pretty obvious skyline right there. This is the first trip the Queen Mary took across the Atlantic, first arrival in New York. There's an entourage of over 500 smaller vessels bringing her into this port, very similar to the way it looked when she arrived in Long Beach. Although I looked into the history of her arrival here, found out that there were closer to 5,000 vessels bringing her into this port, which is insane. I don't know how they did that. Didn't need a bridge, you just walked across the boat. I'm kidding. Now a lot of people ask, why? Why 5,000? Now the thing is during this period, these ships were on the decline. A lot of them had been destroyed, a lot of them lost. Obviously Titanic was on everyone's mind for infamous and ironic reasons. The Queen Mary was the opposite of that. It was a complete success. Survived the war, helped bring families together after the fighting, continued its luxury liner service after the war. It was a symbol of victory. People wanted to be there. This is a huge deal, seeing the ship take that last trip here to Long Beach. It's people who work on board the ship today who were here when it arrived in Long Beach. So a lot of continued connections you still have.
What year was that again when it arrived here?
That was 68.
68?
Yeah, 71 we opened. Yeah. Now I want to tell you a bit about this room right next to the photo. This is a third-class nursery, and not a nursery anymore. We do have storage in that area, so people who are working on board the ship come down here. If they need something, they come and get it. There's also been quite a few reports from people who work here going inside the room, seeing shadow figures moving along the walls, hearing the sounds of children laughing. This is nothing creepier than tiny little ghost kids, as horror films have taught us, right?
Yeah,
It's true,
right.
it's true. Watch too many movies. People staying in the rooms nearby, similar reports. I call the front desk early morning. Why are there kids playing at this time of the night? Can you get them to be quiet, please? We're trying to go to sleep. And there's nobody down there. We've checked before. Sleep well. Good luck. Another spirit, though, has been seen close to this area. A tall man with gray hair and a gray suit, just kind of walking around this spot, almost like he's guarding something. But just recently I found out that there's a connection to this man. There was actually during the Cold War, there was a Russian spy on board, and he had his daughter with him. Apparently he was captured, and the two were separated. Some people think this is the same guy. After what happened, he's still looking. Just very, very kind of horrible story. But it does bring up another thing, that types of spirits on board. First off, you got poltergeist activity, nothing there, but an object moves by itself. Next would be a shadow figure, like I mentioned, looks like a shadow, moves along the wall, you look at it, disappears. Next would be an apparition, like in the movies, looks human, but maybe it's not there completely. And last of all would be a full-bodied apparition, just like you or me, except they're probably wearing clothing from the era. And I mentioned earlier, we do have events where people come through dressed in 20s, 30s, 40s clothing, and we can't, hello, how are you? Just checking, just making sure. I'll have you peeing in a cup. But this man, nobody paid him too much mind. He was wandering around. They figured, he was just must be here for an event. But that evening, there is a woman staying in the ship, a hotel guest, exploring early hours. And she comes to the door, gets curious, starts checking the handle. All of a sudden, this man in the gray suit comes running through that doorway, chases her through that doorway, all the way down the hall to the front desk. She's in hysterics. She says, man, this dude, he's following me, I don't know what's going on. She gets security, everybody working on the ship that time of the night, search the entire front half of the ship all the way forward. Can't find anybody of that description anywhere on board. All right, Joe, now's your cue. Come on out. That'll be next time. Find a guy hanging out in Long Beach. Give him a pizza. Put on the coat. All of it. Report made in this area just about a year ago. There was a young couple walking through about 9 p.m. Went through this spot and saw a man dressed kind of like me, officer, a little bit older, mustache, and he was standing here at the top by the stairs. They passed by and they looked back immediately, and he was gone. And they saw he looked to be on the ground at the bottom of the stairs, like he had fallen. They saw his body down there. They got kind of panicked for 2 seconds, and then the body vanished. Just right in front of them, disappeared. Now we think this may have been a residual thing from an event that happened in the past. There were accidents up here. This was one of the most dangerous spots you could be on the ship. On the stairs, if you hit bad weather, this stairway could go vertical. It's that dangerous if you hit those waves. Anybody on those stairs was probably going to fall and probably wouldn't survive the fall. So we think that's what we may have witnessed. There was record of 2 men who fell down the stairs during that bad weather and hit that metal ground. Very quickly, it was over. So, sorry about the sad story. We are now going to go to the front of the ship.
gentleman's gonna share his wine.
Now, the area we're going to is all the way to the prow of the ship. You cannot go any further forward. People have heard the sounds of metal on metal scraping, sounds of men yelling, which a lot of people link to the Curacao, the ship that we hit. People have also heard the sounds of German conversation. I have a couple theories about why that is, and I'll tell you about it when we get there. On the next. So this is the prow of the ship. That's the very front. You cannot go further forward than that. This goes 4 levels down. There is a bulkhead section, then the top 10 feet, actually top 36 feet of the boiler room goes all the way to the bottom. So it goes quite a bit further, even beyond the bottom of this. The ropes you see lying around are where they would have been dropped when they were not being used to tie the ship to port. So they would just throw them down to the cargo areas and they'd land where they were going to land. Also, I mentioned at the beginning of the tour, the name of the ship is the RMS Queen Mary. And a lot of people think the M stands for Maritime, Majesty, but it actually stood for Royal Mail Ship, as in they would deliver letters and packages and parcels in these areas. And when they were moving guests, they were also moving the mail. Kind of interesting. So important it was in the name. Oh, there's a ghost. Any noise, I'm just like, hey, ghost. I got a question for everybody. Which was bigger, the Titanic or the Queen Mary?
Queen Mary.
You are correct. Queen Mary
Yes.
was twice the size of the Titanic.
Yeah.
Built 20 years earlier, Titanic. So there's a lot of time for advances in technology between the two. Of course, when the Titanic was built, it was by far the biggest. But quickly after that, ships got bigger really fast. You can fit the Titanic inside the Queen Mary, not see a single part of it from the outside. It weighed 46,000 tons. We weigh 81,000 tons. Literally just about double, because I can do math. The only thing they got us beat on is the pool still does have water. The reason I made the comparison is everybody knows class distinction on board the Titanic. You got first class on the top, second in the middle, third on the bottom, and then Leonardo DiCaprio down below, right? Queen Mary was a little different. You had first class in the center of the ship, top to bottom. All first class. Those are where all the hotel rooms are now. Also the most stable spot when the ship was in motion. It's a smoother ride. Second class at the back end of the ship, top to bottom, still nice rooms, paying a lot of money to be anywhere, they're all going to be good. Only thing that made second class not quite as good was the vibration of the engines from down below. Third class was further forward toward us. Third class was fine. It was nice, slightly smaller rooms, still big compared to most modern cruise ships today. Third class was fine until you hit the bad weather. Then, like we said about those stairs, these areas would go up and down through the waves, sometimes hundreds of feet. Did not want to be eating or walking upstairs. Further forward, you were in the cruise quarters. That's where the maze would have been, where we passed through. Tiny bunks, tiny rooms. You got paid really well. It was one of the highest paying ocean liners that existed. Hopefully that was consolation for the tiny rooms you had to stay in. Now, if you were further forward than that, you were here. And if you were here, you were a POW, or prisoner of war, which might explain the German conversations. People say that they've heard German soldiers, Italian soldiers were held in this area all the way down. Many deaths, suicides, injuries sustained from bouncing around in the area. It's bad in third class. I can't imagine how brutal it must have been this part of the front. Everything you see is the same as it was. No padding. Had to hold on. Also, this was a North Atlantic ship built for cold weather. Didn't do well in the heat at all. There were times during the war we had no choice. We had to go through tropical areas. And right now it's a little warm. It's a little toasty for the evening. But if you were on board in the tropics, average temperature was 120 degrees. Heat stroke happened every few minutes. As far as I'm concerned, this is the creepiest area on board the ship, even if you don't believe in ghosts. Simply the history of the area. A lot of grim things happen in this spot. And also the Curacao, the ship that we hit, that was hit right below us. Now if you want, you can look around a bit, you can take a couple pictures if you like, move up to the front, feel free. A couple of throw pillows, a few flowers. One time it was raining down here, water was coming down. Almost sank the ship. It was like alien. Harry Dean Stanton, don't go in there. Just leave the cat.
It's like a light.
What? Come on!
I'm ready.
I'm gonna take us into this dark corner over here and see what we can find or see, if anything. Let's take a look.
So right here, we're gonna head toward the pool, but on the way to it, we have a room that we actually can't go in anymore. It's the B340 room, and it used to be a hotel room, and then it was empty for years and years. Part of the reason it was empty is there were just so many complaints. There were lights going off and on, water turning off and on in the room. People saw mist on the ground, poltergeist activity. It was one of the most active places on the ship. Still is for the most part, but they reopened it as a hotel room, which is the reason we can't go inside. We used to do kind of a look inside, and people would always try to break into the room. We'd find circles of salt on the ground, candles laying around. It was just like somebody wanted to see something. They definitely were preparing for that. The room does not have a number. It's one of the only rooms that has no number on the wall. We thought if we removed the number, people wouldn't know what room it was. Now people just look for the door without a number, so it didn't really help. Yes, follow me. Just come out. Be careful. Jumping downstairs.
Oh, I can't see anything. Is that the pool? What is that? Let me see. I can't see, but that's the pool.
So this is the pool right here. This is the pool entrance. On the other side, you have the dining hall. It was big enough to hold all of first class. It was through those doors. A lot of servants would jump back and forth between the two spots and help out. A lot of them were pretty young. Boys in uniform, around 12 years old. They'd run around and help you with your bag or help you with your coat, or light your cigar, that kind of thing. Some of them had a pretty good gig going. They would come through and help you with the bag and say, oh, it's my birthday. Oh, really? Here you go. Here's some extra tip. Problem is some of them did that too often. So you'd have a return guest come through, help them out with the bag, and say, oh, it's my birthday. Really, 2 times this week? So some of them got in a little bit of trouble for that. Now, if you were going to the pool, you go through the entrance, you go down the platform, and then down the stairs at the back of the pool to the pool itself. Reason we don't have water in it now is it's too deep for California state code. 6 feet at the shallow end means we legally cannot have people swimming in it. But there's no stairs, there's no nothing. It's just a drop in. So it'd be very dangerous if a kid was around it. That's the main. Now the ghost hunters came to this spot. They heard a lot of stories about spiritual activity near the pool, and they wanted to check it for themselves. So they brought their whole families, their crew, their equipment, and spent the night down here in the pool, just seeing what they could find. They said there seemed to be a concentration of paranormal energy near the ceiling, just kind of moving around up there. It was the whole day. It was going up even the whole night. And the theory about why it was happening was the ceiling itself. Ceiling used to be made of mother-of-pearl tile, and during the war we would fill up the entire ship with troops. We still hold the record for most men on one ship in the history of the ocean. Normal capacity was about 3,000, including the crew. And on that one trip, we had over 16,500 men on board. So it was packed. They had areas for bunks. They were kind of out of the way. They had to have room for them to rest. One of these spots was the pool. They'd have bunks stacked in there 7 high. If you got sick down there, you were stuck with it until you came into port. Not fun. Now the men down there, they would climb up the stairs, get up on the ledge, and they'd chip the tile off the ceiling, use them as poker chips in their card games. Can't really blame them. There's nothing to do. It's a horrible spot. Now we got back to Southampton, and we'd replace all that tile with quartz tile, which is said to be a conductor for paranormal. A lot of people think it's the reason it's so focused in this particular spot. Had sightings of a man in coveralls walking around the bottom level. There was a man who did die in the boiler room. He fell off one of the catwalks, fell to the bottom. I think it may be the same guy. He's a little irritable. Probably would be myself if I was in that situation. We also had a woman in a 1960s tennis outfit walking up and down the stairs at the back of the room. A woman in a bridal gown. We think that might be linked to the brides who were being, taken across the Atlantic. The most famous spirit, though, is a little girl by the name of Jackie, between the ages of 5 and 7. She's blonde hair, wears a little blue dress. Been seen all over the ship, but primarily sticks to near the pool. People say she's friendly for the most part, just likes to play hide and seek, peeks out from behind the pillars and the upper ledges. People say they felt a small hand touching theirs, someone tugging on clothing, even the voice of a little girl talking in areas of the ship. And when the ghost hunters' daughters were here, they would take turns. They'd sing nursery rhymes from the era. Get halfway through a song, you'd stop and sometimes hear the voice of a little girl finishing the songs. Now, they looked a bit more into the history of the area, and they found out that there was a little girl named Jackie who did drown in the second-class pool. They think that when they removed the second-class pool, she simply upgraded to first class. I mean, if you're going to be here, you might as well be at first. Any questions, concerns, quotes, quips, comments, complaints? Well, thank you all for joining me on this tour. I hope you guys had a good time. Hope you learned something. Hope you had fun. Hope you didn't get scared. But thank you very much. Hope you all have a wonderful evening and a safe trip home whenever you're headed that way.
Southampton, maybe Southampton, in Massachusetts, or Connecticut. It's 1967, year after I was born.
That thing is gorgeous.
Down! Getting ready for the game tomorrow. Okay, right or left, boys and girls?
In 1,000 feet, turn right onto South Figueroa Street.
Waiting at Taco Bell in the drive-thru, I look over and see a really cool mural. What a beautiful moon. Nice to see it on a night like this. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Top Vloggers. As always, I am High and Mighty Joe, hanging out with the lovely cat and the Aunt Melinda, taking us all the way back to our apartment. We had a great time for you. We hope you did too. Join us next time as we have another great, cool adventure to take you on. Don't forget to join us on Patreon at patreon.com/thetopvlogers if you too would like to help us reach the top. We are also on all of the social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at thetopvlogers. And until next time, Top Vloggers!